About 10 days ago, the Chicago Tribune had a Sunday exclusive investigative report on fire retardant chemicals. And the report went on for several days, and I called the writers and commended them on the wonderful job that they did on this report. It was as good as any investigation I've ever seen by a committee of Congress. And it raised some serious issues I'd never thought about. We probably have all heard from time to time there are certain chemicals which, when put on fabric, for example, will reduce the likelihood that it will flame and injure someone. Well, I accepted that as truth, and I guess most people would, because there was testimony that was given, even by medical doctors and so-called experts, that said that's a fact. Well, the Tribune series took a look at these so-called experts, and you know what they found? They were on the payroll of the chemical companies that made the fire retardant chemicals. And the doctors were actually kind of manufacturing cases of burns to make the case that states should apply these new standards. Well, over the years, this testimony by these people who had a built-in conflict of interest ended up being persuasive at many levels in many states. And as a result, there were requirements to add fire retardant chemicals to fabrics in clothing, pajamas, furniture, and the like. And then a closer look was taken. The underwriters laboratory took a look at these chemicals and said, you know what? They really don't stop a fire from flaming up. The tests that they're using are totally inadequate. These chemicals don't achieve what they're supposed to achieve, but there's another side to the story. The chemicals themselves can be dangerous. These are chemicals that haven't been tested in terms of their exposure to human beings. And the average couch, the Chicago Tribune article said, had 2 pounds of fire retardant chemicals built into it. They put it particularly in those foam cushions. I'm going to get back to that in a second. Remember that, the foam cushions. Well, last November, Madam President, in your wonderful state, my daughter gave birth to twins. November the 15th. It was a source of great celebration, still is. My wife and I were there with our son-in-law and daughter to welcome this little boy and little girl into the world, and after a couple days to bring them home from the hospital to the condo where my son-in-law and daughter live. And we were so careful. I think about it now. Hand sanitizers. We never had that when we were raising our kids, but we were careful to make sure we washed our hands. Every single thing that these kids would come in contact with, the little onesies or the blankets, had to not only be cleaned, but cleaned with the right detergent. We wanted to get the right detergent so it wouldn't cause any problems with these children. Of course, when we're giving them formula, we're sterilizing everything in sight to make sure that it's perfectly clean. And then I recall that moment when I had that tiny little baby and I was going to give this baby a bottle, see if I still remembered how to do it. And they said, well, get a comfortable place. Why don't you go and sit down on the couch? Sit down on the couch. I'd never crossed my mind that as I sat down on the couch and depressed that cushion on the couch, I was releasing a spray of toxic dust from fire retardant chemicals. Never crossed my mind at one moment. And when we went to buy a little kind of cradle with a cushion for each of the kids, we went over to Babies R Us in Columbus Circle, took the subway over there. I never thought to even think about whether or not the cushion on that baby's cradle or crib had fire retardant chemicals in it that might, in fact, be sprayed every time someone sat on it or the baby was put on it. Never crossed my mind. Well, I can tell you as a result of the Chicago Tribune articles, I think about it all the time now. And I think about this. How many American families can make that judgment when they buy a couch or a chair, when they buy children's furniture? You can't. You cannot physically do it. I'm not a scientist, I'm a political scientist, that doesn't count. I'm not a real scientist. And I can't judge what's safe and what isn't. Whom can I trust? Can I trust the company making the product? Well, you like to think so, but sometimes not. Can you trust the spokespeople for the chemical industry? Unfortunately, they come into this with a conflict of interest. So Senator Frank Lautenberg of New Jersey has created legislation that really calls on the chemical industry to take care with the chemicals that they put into everything we use every single day, to make sure that Americans and families have peace of mind when they buy products, that the Environmental Protection Agency is at least reviewing the chemicals that are being put in those products to decide if they're safe? If the Environmental Protection Agency doesn't do this, who will do it? Can we trust the chemical industry to do it? I don't think so. Can we trust the furniture industry? I'm not sure. But we know if the EPA does it, it could make a difference.